Okay, here's a quick tutorial on how I'm using Obsidian right now. So out of the three main features of Obsidian, which are the file hierarchy, the linking, and the tagging, I'm mostly only using the file hierarchy and the linking. I don't use tags that much to group documents into each other, but the only use case for the for the tags that I do have right now is just internally referring to different things in a document. So for example, if I go to FOSS meetings, and down here you can see that, for example, this is a to-do, and that's it. That's like literally all I do with the tags. With that covered, let's go cover the file hierarchy. So I pile up, like, basically group all my notes into as few categories as possible, but so far the categories that I've come up with are these. So I have undergrad for anything school related. I have a social database for anything for basically keeping track of how I met someone, and so then if I can like go back and then see if someone knows something, I have basically my own personal database here. Then I have research, which I don't use that much anymore, but basically I have groups based on different topics. So I was doing some machine learning research, so that is grouped by projects, and you can see that this was an active project, so it's very big. There's quick refs, which is about basically anything that can't be grouped into different things that I want to know, but they're just there, mostly how to do certain things in different software. If I'm using, for example, Microsoft Office, how to do different things, right? And obviously you can Google these, but these are specific, very, very specific things that I've needed to do in the past, and I went to great troubles to find the answer, so I just put it here for quick reference. That's why this whole thing is called quick refs. So even about my own laptop, right? So the charger, the battery life, the different parts, whether or not they're available. But then there's planning. So if I have anything that can help me, like basically these are just my tasks, literally. So if I have a bunch of changes in my resume, I have them here. If I have motivations, they're going to be here. If I have homework, okay, this homework, I should probably delete this, honestly. Let me just delete that. But for example, I have a notebook called Tasks, and that uses a plugin called Obsidian Tasks that basically scans all of my files, and I have some scripts here that, for example, group them by date or topic, right? So for homework, I have it such that all the homework tags only show up. This is another way that I use tags, other than just clumping them together. And then the due dates, and then sorting, stuff like that, right? And then there's the deadlines, things that are overdue, due today, due tomorrow, due this week, and so on and so forth. It just gets bigger. Due this month, due this semester. But yeah, that's, for example, how I manage my tasks. I'll cover this a bit more in detail later, but right now let's just move on. I also have a journal, which is just, dates. If I want to write anything in my journal about just how the day went or something. Then there's history, which was supposed to be my hobby, just learning about different histories of different parts of the world, but where I'm not using that either. General topics, these are mostly academic topics that I know I'll be using later. So for example, in computer science, whenever I forget how mainframes are supposed to work, I put them here. These are more specific than quick refs because these are actually complex topics, not just something that I learned and want to remember later, so I put them here. So for example, in cybersecurity, how the RSA encryption works. These are notes that I've taken through YouTube videos and stuff. Then there's career, so, okay, never mind. that's all there is for general topics. It should make sense, you know. Then there's FOSS and projects. So with projects, because it becomes very complex to keep track of things, I have a separate folder for that. FOSS means just contributions and projects. I've grouped them together. And then extreme long term, just, you know, random stuff I think of at night. It's not that important. CSREFs, this is actually very important because as I learn different technologies, I want to be able to go back and relearn them just by quickly looking at the notes. So for example, with, let's see, I'm right now working on some web dev projects. So if I go into web and then look at, okay, not MySQL, but for example, Mongoose, I have some very, very brief notes about the main things that I keep forgetting. For example, if I also go into Redux, these are just quick notes about how to do that, and then I have an example of how to implement a reducer function, for example. So that's with CSREFs. This is probably what I use the most, Obsidian, what I probably use the most on any given week, honestly. Then there's business ideas, because why not? Just in case I come up with a great idea, why not just put it there, and then I have just success stories to keep me inspired. Then there's just books, which is, you know, just notes that I take when I'm reading books. So for example, Why Nations Fail. I don't know, there was probably, yeah, that's a good example. So that's a pretty good description of my file hierarchy. Obviously this is going to be very different for different people, but that's how it works for me. Now let's go look at the graph, and this is where the whole linking thing comes in. Let me quickly make these move around and stabilize, because by default they're like jumbled up sometimes. Okay, that seems pretty stable to me. Let me just quickly graph, save node positions. So here I have color coded them. So red is people. Okay, I should not be hovering over people, that's dangerous. Purple is, sorry, this pink is CSREFs, green is projects. Actually no, green is school notes, blue is research. The other green is projects. So for example, this is a contribution that I wanted to make but I didn't. And then black is everything else. You see these big categories over here? That's precisely how these are colored. So I just came here and I oh shit, why did I do that? Sorry. I meant to press this one. Sorry, this one. So you can see that, for example, CSREFs is pink, research is blue, and then projects is green, social database is red, and then undergrad is like a mix of green and blue, whatever you want to call that. So there's that. This gives you a good idea of how it looks in the big picture, but for example, to show you how this works specifically, okay, let me find an example that does not contain personal data. So let's go to Dijkstra. So I have Dijkstra's algorithm over here, and if I go into my local graph, you're gonna see that there's two documents linked to this. There's Esker Dijkstra, which, sorry, I had to cough. There's whatever his first name is, and then Dijkstra. If I go to that, I can see that here's the link. This actually falls under my social database. You can see that social database, role models, tech, and then Dijkstra. And then the Dijkstra's algorithm falls under general topics, computer science, DSA, which is, you know, data structures and algorithms, and then Dijkstra's algorithm. And then there's graphs, which is actually one of my my CS3 nodes, right? So you can see how the way I link these together has absolutely nothing to do with how they're organized in this hierarchy. This hierarchy is one way to look at data, or the notes, and the graph is like a completely other way. To be honest, the global graph is not very useful at all. I mostly use the linking just to find local graphs. For example, if I wanted to, if I go to, okay, it's going to be personal information, but this is very useful for example, whenever you want to know who in your contacts is good at, I don't know, graphic design. So for example, I have a graphic design notebook where any person that I meet who is good at graphic design, I make a link to graphic design. Then I can go to the local graph and see who is, you know, good at graphic design. Stuff like that, right? So that's pretty much what it is with my graphs. There's really no rule here. All I do is that, like, my only constraint is that to not like overlink, right? So for example, if we go to Elon Musk, we have a lot of links, but it could be much more. So for example, if I see let's say something like, say if I see post college, I don't see a reason to link this to my undergrad reference notebook, even though it's talking about Elon Musk's undergrad, right? If it has a reason to be linked, like if I know that I'll have to use that reference at some point, sometime, then I'll make a link. But if not, I don't. So for example, there's a link to the PayPal Mafia, which is a bunch of dudes who, you know, were in PayPal and then went out. So you can see that, for example, Elon Musk goes to PayPal Mafia, goes to this dude, which is pretty nice if you ask me. So if I can go to, like, Elon Musk, I have him linked to Richard Stallman because he was also very much a risk taker and stuff like that. Then we can go to like hacktivism, and then from hacktivism you can go to Aaron Swartz, and then from Aaron Swartz you can go to library, and then nonprofits, and then, you know, GNOME contributions. So the local graph is really what matters, in my opinion. Okay, so that's my graph, and that's my big hierarchy. I'm not going to go too much in detail about my extensions that I'm currently using, but I'll just go show you the list, right? So advanced cursors is basically what allows me to make some edits using VS Code. You know how VS Code allows you to have multiple cursors? I can do the same thing. So for example, if I have a word here that is, I'm sure there's a lot of Elons in this document. I can select and then press Control D, and then it's going to select the next Elon, and then all the way to the end. And if I make an edit right now, I can edit all of them at the same time. This was something that I was used to in VS Code, then just decided to add it here as well. There's collapse all, which I don't use. This was from before this button was a thing. Data view I don't use. Obsidian Git I do use. This allows me to keep my computer and phone and tablet notes in sync without paying for the sync service. Then there's persistent graph, which I'm sure you've noticed by this time. You can save your graph state such that whenever you open your graph the next time, it doesn't look all jumbled and stuff. And then there's tasks, which is how I, had it filter my homework throughout all my notes, and then my to-do lists with deadlines, and then you could set stuff as recurring, you could set different priorities. I actually really like this one if you want to check it out, but just be aware that the setup takes a while, so you actually have to write some weird syntax that is specific to this extension. Toggle case is just an extension that you can bind to any key, and then it will toggle from uppercase to lowercase to capitalized. And then version history diff allows me to check the history of any file that I have been tracking with Git. So for example, on the Elon Musk one, I can go say version history diff, show git diff view for active file, and then you can select two reference points. So what did this commit add? What did I add from this commit all the way to what I have already on my disk, right? So this is the last commit, and then if I go compare, for example, this one and this one, I can easily see that, oh shit, I messed something up. Now I know that it's this commit, so I'm sure that if I revert this commit, I will get to this state. But that's pretty much all the important things that you should know. I have a bunch of weird customizations. I have changed a lot of keybinds. I have some custom systems for the task management, for example, but I don't think that's related right now. But let me know if you have any questions. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you some other time.